Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands on Podfic. This will be the continuation of Datastream. This will be Part 26, Chapter 26. You've got a few choices, Shinso, Aizawa said. You can either go to another foster home while the dorms are being built, and have that family act as your legal guardians for the next 3 years. Or you can become an official ward of UA, and have a teacher become your acting guardian. Aizawa shrugged. It's your choice. Hitoshi gave him a look that questioned his sanity. Is that really a question, Aizawa-sensei? Yamada snickered. Sho already got the guest room fixed up for you to stay in while the dorms are built. We just wanted to make sure you knew you didn't have to come with us if you would rather not. Will Izu be staying at the dorms too? Shouto asked. Aizawa nodded. Yes, but in the teacher's dorms. He'll have his own room in our apartment there. Aw, but why am I going to be stuck there? I want a room in 1A's dorm, Isuku complained. Yamada ran his fingers through Izu's hair. Zuzu, my tiny green baby, you're not a 1A student. You're not an official student at all, so you can't room in any of the student dorms. You are my sweet baby bean, though, so you get to stay on campus with us. Izu pouted a moment, but then sighed. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And I'm sure I can always visit the common rooms for 1A, right? When he saw nods of agreement from Aizawa and Yamada, Izu grinned. Then I suppose it'll be fine. He leaned back against Hitoshi again. Shouto tilted his head. Will these dorms be optional or mandatory? Mandatory, at least for now. We're going to be doing an investigation into everyone's homes and family lives. Nezu's not willing to take the risk of any of the students being in an unsafe home environment, and we know that Shinso isn't the only student in foster care. We're not risking the safety of any of the students. After we're sure all the students have safe homes, we may lift the mandatory requirement, though. Shouto nodded his head. I know I'd be extremely excited about this if it had been a few years ago and my dad was still free. Maybe this will help someone else get away from a bad situation, too. That's right, Yamada said. That's what Nezu was thinking when he set this up. Well, I suppose I'll get the investigation started, Izuku suggested. I'm sure Nezu Sensei will put me on that soon enough anyways. Zu, you just woke up, and you're still in a tangle of limbs with your new boyfriends. You can take a few days to just rest and enjoy the company before you start diving into another research project, Aizawa gently scolded. Keep Shinso company over the weekend, and maybe Nezu will give this project to you on Monday. Hitoshi wrapped his arm around Izuku and pulled him a little closer. Yeah, stay with me for the weekend. I just went through a traumatic event. I need my emotional support boyfriends. Shouto's staying too, right? Shouto snickered. As if I could turn down that invitation. He kissed Hitoshi on the cheek. The weekend passed by quickly, and by the time Monday rolled around, Hitoshi was mostly back to full strength. All of his injuries had been healed, but he still felt a little weak, so Aizawa had stated he wouldn't be allowed to participate fully in Foundational Heroics for the week, but would be able to participate the week after. After all, they did have their final exams coming up soon. Dude, you're back, Denki called out excitedly when he got to class and saw Hitoshi sitting at his desk. He tossed his bag at his own desk and tackled Hitoshi for a hug. We were so worried about you. Hitoshi patted Denki on the back and grinned. Thanks. It's good to be back. What happened? Our Lord and Savior wouldn't say, just told me I'd find out when you came back if you were willing to talk. Denki was giving Hitoshi his best puppy eyes and even started jutting out his bottom lip to reinforce his pout. Hitoshi rolled his eyes and huffed out a laugh. My old foster parents gave me up, and it was a situation getting a new home that would allow me to keep going to UA, that's all. I'm back since my living situation stabilized. Oh, that's not as worrying as I was thinking it was. Denki grinned. I was worried. You were being kidnapped and being held in a tiny soundproof room, being starved by some villain, possibly in retaliation for something you did, or being held hostage since, you're friends with Lord Gremlin. Hitoshi looked at Denki with a raised eyebrow. He had gotten pretty dang close to what really happened. Wow, What? I have an active imagination, and you were missing, and I was worried. I'm glad it was nothing like that, though. Denki hugged Hitoshi again, and then got comfortable in Nato's seat, just in time for said boy to walk in and glare slightly at him. Toshi, welcome back. Nato grinned, lightly brushing his hand against Hitoshi's. Hey, Danks. Yeah? Denki's eyes glazed over as he got caught up in Nato's copied quirk. Get out of my seat. As soon as Denki got up, Nato sat down and released Denki and cocked an eyebrow. Now, what have we learned? Denki pouted. You're a dick and have no shame. Precisely. My seat. Only our Green Master can take my seat. All hail the Green Master, Denki joked, causing the other three to laugh. Where is Izu anyways? Nato asked. He had said he'd be joining classes again once you got back. Oh, Nezu stole them. He'll likely be joining us at lunch, though, Shouto said. That's an interesting quirk, Izuku deadpanned to Nezu. You know what would make it even more interesting? If you had told me about it before I found out on my own. Nezu blinked at him, more than a little surprised. You already know about One for All? He asked. Izuku let out a sigh of annoyance. You had me look on your computer in Wildflowers, subsection Gamma Tau Beta 9. The folder OVA had a mention of One for All. I got curious. Started looking into it, figured out it was transferable, stockpiling quirk, and now I know it's already been transferred. I think it's gone to Togeda Mirio, but I don't have it confirmed just yet. Izuku shrugged and took a sip of the tea Nezu had offered him. Your deductive skills are quite impressive, Nezu complimented. Let's take that a step further. Can you tell me what task I'm about to assign you? Izuku smirked slightly. Togeda's the new holder of the quirk, isn't he? I noticed his quirk had a major mutation a few weeks ago, and now he can't control his strength and keeps hurting himself. Since you're telling me about this quirk, and I'm so close to getting my quirk counseling license, I'm going to guess you want me to counsel Togeda on his new quirk, with the added bonus of intimidating the crap out of All Might. Nezu cackled and clapped his hands. Yes, precisely. You do remember how to intimidate others, yes? I know we haven't practiced that particular skill in a few years, but I want you to go all out with it today when you meet with Yagi-san. Izuku let all expressions fall from his face and brought up Datastream to the surface. Normally when Izuku was actively using his quirk, he was withdrawing into himself, allowing his consciousness to pull the signals to his body. That was the way that was the most unnoticeable, the way that few people outside his family and closest friends would notice, the only evidence being his slightly dazed eyes. That was not the only way Izuku could use Datastream, though. No, he could bring his consciousness out to dance amongst the signals, causing his eyes to glow red and what looks like red electricity to dance in his eyes. This was way far less effective and extremely obvious, so it was rarely used, but Papa had said that the glow and the electricity that occurred when he did that made him look even more like Uncle Shouta. When he paired that with the intimidating stare Nezu had taught him at 12, Izuku was able to scare almost anyone. Perfect. Use that whenever Yagi-san says or does something insulting to you. He is already going to be expecting Shouta-kun to show up to tutor Togeda-kun. Izuku let his stare drop and grinned. It always amuses me how many people think Uncle Shouta has a quirk counselor license. All he does is erase a quirk. He's never bothered looking into the theory behind quirks or focused on ways to improve them, or even methods of wresting control over wayward quirks. If someone wants advice on their quirks, they're a lot better off going to either myself or Papa. Yes, they would be. But Yagi believes that your uncle is a student of mine that I'm sending to help Togeda-kun. Nezu's grin turned sharp. You're going to show him exactly why you are my successor, and not Shouta-kun. Izuku's grin turned just as sharp as his mentor's. Certainly, Nezu Sensei. Are you sure Aizawa Sensei is going to be able to help me with this quirk? Mirio asked All Might. They were waiting for Aizawa Sensei to show up in Gym Upsilon, by far one of the least used gyms on the school grounds. I was always under the impression that Aizawa Sensei didn't care about quirk theory. Well, he must. He is a teacher, after all. All Might laughed confidently. And he's Nezu's personal student, so I'm sure he'll be able to figure out how to fix your issues and help you figure out my quirk. Mirio hummed, not quite convinced. Yes, Aizawa Sensei was a student of the principal, but that didn't mean he was gearing towards the quirk sciences. Besides, from what Mirio had heard from the rumor mill, Aizawa Sensei's nephew, Izuku, had been helping the students in 1A with their quirks, and it was common knowledge that he was Principal Nezu's current student. Mirio wouldn't be surprised if Principal Nezu had been referencing Aizawa Izuku and All Might mistook him for Aizawa Shouta. Well, it didn't matter much to Mirio which of the Aizawas he got for his trainer, so long as one of them could help him to get some more control of One for All. This quirk was so much more difficult for him to figure out than permeation ever was, and permeation was a nightmare to figure out and master. The door to the gym opened, and in walked a small green-haired boy. Sorry I'm late, but it's really your own fault, he complained. Honestly, you had to pick the furthest gym, huh? You couldn't pick Gym Row? Just as secure and just barely past the regular gyms. Take note, Togeda-san, next session go to Gym Row. I'm not trekking my ass out here again. Understood, Mirio agreed easily. He was excited to see that his quirk counselor was going to be Aizawa Izuku. He had heard that this kid had helped to train all 4 of the students that had medaled at the first-year sports festival this year. Young Aizawa, where is your uncle? All Might asked condescendingly. Nezu said he was going to be assisting young Togeda. No, he didn't, Aizawa countered. He said he was sending his student. You asked which student, and he told you he was sending me. He shrugged. Not his fault he didn't bother to verify which Aizawa he was talking about. Turning to Mirio, Aizawa grinned. Okay, so I know the basics of your quirk, and Nezu Sensei let me read all his notes on permeation, so let's see what this new quirk does. Now wait just a minute, All Might interrupted. You can't possibly know what you're doing. I insist on your uncle being the one to assist me in training young Togeda. Aizawa leveled a stare at All Might, and Mirio could swear the very air in the gym thickened, and All Might paled slightly. Now, while I'm sure you didn't mean to insult me again, All Might, I do believe that between the two of us, I'm the one halfway finished with my teaching license, and in 3 months I'll be fully certified as a quirk counselor. Can you say the same? That's ridiculous, All Might stuttered. You're far too young to have completed any of that. Aizawa's eyes turned red and started glowing. My age has nothing to do with this. Now go sit on the sidelines while I figure out how to prevent your student from breaking every bone in his arm again. Which, he added as an aside, is another good reason as to why Gym Upsilon was the stupidest gym for you to choose. Do you know just how long it will take for Togeda-san to get medical treatment if something goes wrong? Mirio had thought about that as well as they had been walking to this out-of-the-way gym and was admittedly nervous. But if Aizawa was thinking about this, then he was sure that the boy wouldn't have him attempt anything too rigorous today. Aizawa completely ignored All Might and the fact that he hadn't even bothered taking a single step toward the sidelines. Okay, so, hello Togeda-san. I'm Aizawa Izuku. I'm pretty sure you've seen me around or at least heard of me. Oh yes, I heard you were the one who personally trained the winners of the first-year sports fest this year. Mirio beamed at the younger boy. Well, 3 of them, yeah, but my uncle's the one who trained Hitoshi. I helped him with this quirk, but he didn't bother using it at all the whole time. Aizawa shrugged again. Anyways, since my uncle is a teacher here, just call me Izuku. It'll help to reduce the confusion. He winked. He honestly winked at Mirio. Oh, they knew that there was going to be confusion today as to why he was here, and not Aizawa-sensei. Mirio laughed at the boy. Of course, Izuku-san. In that case, please call me Mirio. Izuku smiled a bright smile at him and agreed. Okay, Mirio-san. Let's see what I'm working with here. First step, can you please power up the quirk? I don't want you to release the energy, just build it up. Here's the first issue. Mirio rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not too sure how to do that. One for All doesn't feel anything like permeation, and the only advice I've gotten on how to activate it is, well... Mirio had just barely stopped himself from admitting what All Might's advice had been. He really didn't want to admit that clench your butt cheeks and yell smash was the advice he'd received, at least not while the man was right there. Izuku narrowed his eyes, as if he already knew what the advice had been, and then shrugged. All right then, looks like we're starting completely from scratch. Meditation. I want you to be able to feel the quirk inside you, both quirks actually. I need you to be able to feel the difference between One for All and permeation. You know how to meditate, I'm sure? When Mirio nodded, Izuku smiled. Great, hop to it. I'll be watching and I'll let you know if I see any signs of it activating so you can stop. For the next hour, Mirio and Izuku worked on simply identifying the feeling of the quirk and separating the 2 quirks. They had a plan in place for the next session, in Gym Row, much closer to the main campus and any medical treatment that may be needed. Mirio felt much more confident in Izuku as his trainer than All Might. Even though Izuku had no idea about how the quirk was supposed to work when they had started, he already had much more advice on how to use the quirk after just 1 hour than All Might had in the weeks they had been working together. They were on their way out when Izuku turned towards All Might and said with a smirk, That is what a quirk counseling session is supposed to look like. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 26 of Datastream. Chapter 27 will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying this fic, and as always, thank you so much for listening.